Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Plus Three Futures and Commodities Show. We are recording on July 5th, a little bit before the close. It's the holiday firecracker edition.
Mhm.
And on this episode, we're in the eye of the cycle, a big cycle, and we're going to review that and what it means. Commodities are starting to kick up. The firecrackers are lit there, and we'll see what the charts show us, and we're going to get into it. We want to start with the E-mini and the ABCD going into it. As always, my partner Barrie Hadarachi is here with me today. And Barrie, without any further ado, let's dive right into it.
All right, let's get this done. 55.66 was the level we left on the last episode. We talked about how important it is if we're going to settle above it or not. And then I don't know if you can see this. I apologize for having this small screen. I'm traveling for the next few weeks, so we'll have to deal with this. Is that okay? Can you see that
No, it's
okay?
good. Yeah, it's
All right.
good.
Okay. So, we put the little cross zone on there, the highlighted zone, and then we have the horizontal. So the zone we put right above 55.66 to capture the potential end of this ABCD. And sure enough, we ran right up into that. And part of this arrangement was tied to the 90-week cycle that we talked about last couple of weeks. That's kind of a firecracker, it's lit.
It's
so
lit. Yes.
so that's what I want to focus on a little bit, because when these cycles come up, what happens is it doesn't necessarily mean just going to fail in front of it. Usually what happens is, these cycles pull the market right up into it, and that gives a really good opportunity to trade into the high.
And using
Rick,
using the firecracker analogy, Barrie, we know the cycle's lit. We just don't know what kind of explosion we're going to get.
well, that's the thing, right? That's the anticipation.
Right.
And that's where we want to manage our risk and it doesn't go off in our hand.
Right. Is
So,
is it a dud? Is it a
mhm.
boomer? What, we just don't know.
Right. So let's look at this. Let's see what the markets are telling us. So far as the S&P goes, we talked about the immediate numbers. We talked about 55.66, and the ABCD just happened to be finishing up right about in that zone. But then, you guys can clearly see the 90-degree square here. That's 56, let's say 56.80, let's say 56.82 is the
Hmm.
level there. If we get there, for sure we did the 90. We did 90 up. And here we had some other levels that corresponded with the cash, SPX, and so forth. So that's how we got that. And you can see it definitely had an effect, because for 2 weeks we stalled. It was sort of acting like the ceiling.
Hmm.
And then this week, after a little bit of a false break, we moved higher, right up into the what we call it 90-week cycle. So
Not
we'll look at
not to be a Barry, not to be a conspiracy theorist or anything. Isn't it interesting that they choose a holiday week with lighter volume to push through?
push. Yeah, exactly right. It's unbelievable how often that happens,
Yep.
and just kind of one of those phenomena, right? It's
Hmm.
just like, 4th of July is when, your plumbing goes off or you need somebody to fix your refrigerator.
Right.
You can't find anybody around. It happens exactly right around the holidays.
Right.
Square 90, we had the 45 here, good potential here for us to turn, because we had the 45 in timing. And
Hmm.
as you can see, we stalled there long enough. And we always talk about when we hit a square or timing line and we have a very shallow correction, or in this case, more of a consolidation. And we know those are bullish.
Yep.
And God knows we did enough expanding triangles in here. We'll look at the 30-minute in a second. We can look at that. But the point here is we talked about how it consolidated, and if it's the right time, we should break down. Otherwise, if we settle above 55.66, which we did exactly on the second, you can see how we
Hmm.
settled above it. And the next day, we really didn't get below that. We hung in there, and here we are. So the next target is 56.82. If you guys are wondering, like, what happened to the ABCD, well, it's a little too early. We're meeting it pretty much on price and time. It's a very balanced ABCD. It looks really
Hmm.
good, and it's still on the books. We're watching it. We don't trade the ABCD, but it's more of a way to measure the market in price and time. So let's see what happens. Before I get into the other charts, but I want to show you guys, if you look at this one by one,
Holding perfectly.
yeah, it's holding very strong. I mean, if you look at the
Hmm.
distance between the close, where it's trading right now, 56.16, And the one by one, 1 by 1, which is sort of a moving average, is around 5,400.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see how strong this market is, even with the what we'd call long consolidations. So that's what we're kind of dealing with. So the summary on this is we got above 55.66. That was sort of the target resistance. We talked about how it gets above, it could possibly go much higher. And so the next target we really have is 56.82, roughly a little more than 100 points.
Mm-hmm.
Not bad. All right. Let's take a look at, let's go to the 30-minute really quick. I want to review that.
The anatomy of chop.
Oh, boy, I tell you. So, but it's been good, if you can nail the chop can be a lot of fun. So,
Yeah.
so here starting about the 21st, we kind of got into the first chop area, and we've been, just wrapping around this 55.39. If you guys don't remember that, that was like our mantra for the last 3 weeks or so.
Mm-hmm.
And we got there, we kept wrapping around it. And then here's the false break, came right down in, and if you guys are trading these things, the way to really tell when the triangle is pretty much over is, you can see how this line held. These lines are all same slope, and they were put in place before price got here, for example, here. And you can see price tapped it, went back up to the 55.39, which was our main line. You can see how price held that. Then on the way back down, the next correction, we did an ABCD down. We didn't quite get to the line. You see that? See the gap there?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the first sign that, hey, it's stronger than it would be rather than weaker. Because if it was weaker, it would go here, or it'll sort of climax and go a little below that line. But we didn't.
Mm-hmm.
We'd held above and immediately reversed and started rallying right up into 55.39 and got on top of it and just started to move. And so that's what's the end of the expanding triangle right there.
Mm-hmm.
Right, we broke that, went up here, and we got above this 55, 62, 61 level, held above. Here comes the holiday week,
Right.
got on top of 55.83, held above. So these are very strong sort of signals. The way we cleared the 55.39, where we held above this line, held above 55.83, which naturally opens up 56.29, which is, you guys can see the 360, that 360 up from the low I'm measuring
Mm-hmm.
30-minute charts from. So it looks like we're behaving very strong. Nice to trade strong markets.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's get into some of the other charts. And here's the cash chart coming from the October 22 low, and which is sort of how all this began. And 270 up from that low. This so happens to be 56.73.
I smell a target zone.
Mm-hmm. And it's a good, it's a decent target, not just because it's just another square line, but it happens to be 270 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sort of a big deal. And you can see the 180 played a major role, 90 played a major role. So it would be unusual for 270 to not be having any part in this.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see how 90 played a role here. So it's clear, and the 180 here and the tap back. So now
Mm-hmm.
we're heading up to 56.73 on the cash chart. This is the cash show. That's something we have to watch. And the thing with the Dow, now we've been talking about it almost every week, how it's just not showing us the strength that we're seeing
Mm-mm.
in these other markets. And it's still not doing that. So,
Nope.
and we are getting this triangle, very nice triangle building here, ascending triangle. So I'm wondering, one of the number of ways it can play out, obviously, but one of the ways we want to be careful of is see if it breaks to the upside, if it's going to recheck and rally, or break to the upside and fail, and that would give us a sort of a hint towards this 90-week cycle to see, hey, if any of these other indices are pointing the way, in any
Mm-hmm.
signs or any patterns that they could show us. Like we talk about, 330 level is 90 degrees up. So long as we're above that, the market's very, very strong. So where's the upside target? If we broke out of this triangle, it would be like 41, let's say 41,200, 41,200 would be the upside target. And right now we're smack in the middle between the two targets, because this is the 1/4 of the square.
Mm-hmm.
and we're pretty much on it. That's 39,707. So we're just right there, right in the middle. How would you call that? Well, I would say it's doing it's holding its lows really well, right above all this support. So it's building up a nice floor versus resistance, you know. So if we break out this little triangle to the upside, you know, I'm talking about this little triangle here.
Mm-hmm.
That also shows more upside. Now, it would have been nice if we came up into this on a high because we'd be 180 trading days low to
Mm-hmm.
high, you know, but we didn't quite get that. Let's see. So the point here is, you know, the Dow is really slow. We're looking to see how this pattern breaks out to the upside or downside, and to see if that's going to sort of support the 90-week cycle. The circle we looked at last week, we didn't run up into it to break out, but we did go sideways through it, and now we're moving up into this July 8th date we put on there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, let's take a look at the weekly. So on the weekly, this is the 90-week cycle we've been talking about. This is from the low in 22, October low. And it's sort of a big deal. And these 90s come in when nobody's really looking. And I haven't heard anybody else talking about this. So,
No.
you know, so here's the 90, and we have the 135. If we, you know, at the time as we were breaking up, I was wondering if we can get up here. Um, and it looks like we are
We're
fully
close.
capable. We're close.
Mm-hmm.
So 56, 73, 72, let's say 56, 72 is a level on the weekly chart. Put that in there. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
So this week is the 90, plus or minus 1 bar is fair to call out on these squares.
Mm-hmm.
And if we get there, I would say we have a great square in place. And that could happen early part of the week next week, 8th to 10th. It's super fair. And we'll trade it from there. But going up into it. So as you guys know, since we came back to check the 90, break out of the 90 level, here we broke out. We came back to check it, started rallying. We had some kind of this is where we were trying to figure out if it's lower high or a false break kind of a thing could happen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We took that out. So ever since we took that out, there was nothing else in the way till we get to this 56.72. That's really the next major level.
Mm-hmm.
And till we get to a good timing point. Now, up in here, we really didn't have any great weekly timing. Now we do. So it's 90 weeks. We're coming up. What's the point of all of this? From a trading perspective, I would say it's to really take advantage of the long side when it's moving, like it's been this week. And when we hit the targets and the time and price targets, to really pull back and watch your risk and play it from that point, look for a new cycle, from that point. So that's where we are. You want to add anything to that, or any questions, or did I leave anything out?
No, I think you covered it well. It's it always looks best at the top, and
Yep.
and that's the reason why we're pointing out these timing and cycles coming into the market,
Mhm.
because now if we see price action change over the next couple weeks, then you're going to say, then we could start putting sort of piling pieces of evidence up together to come to a point where we could say, okay, it's probable that things have changed. Until we have the evidence,
Mhm.
it's just an observation and something that we
Mhm.
note, which is, hey, we got 90 weeks from the low that kicked off this whole thing, this whole
Mhm.
rally. So it's
Exactly.
something important to pay attention to.
Mhm. That's it. That's the main thing. And where the S&P goes, usually the rest follows. So we really want to watch that.
Mm-hmm.
Next, let's move on to bonds. Bonds are kind of in a mixed zone. We're still in the big downward channel. You can see the channel here, dotted lines. And 50% of the square coming off the low in April is just a little bit above. It's sort of the balance point is 119.16. 50% is 21, let's call it 22, 122. We are making higher lows,
Mm-hmm.
something to note. And we did make higher highs, but this low, this can't be any kind of a bull run because we just took out the swing low, correctional low that we had
Mm-hmm.
in June 10th. So that nullifies sort of the whole, this is a whole new bull trend idea. So I'm guessing we're just probably going to consolidate here for a bit. So I would let it finish up. The other thing to remember about this is we have a potential false break here. So it's
Hmm.
possible we go up and tap the upside and then come back down again, or some kind of a consolidation business that bonds like to do.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm seeing. Anything you want to?
I think if you zoom out and look at a monthly, it shows you
Mm-hmm,
exactly that. It's winding up in a triangle, and bonds,
mm-hmm,
gold, and the dollar, all three of them on monthly basis and big time frames are all winding up. It's something's coming and this energy is building in these major markets right now.
mm-hmm. That's a good observation. It feels like that's what's happening, and the charts are sort of hinting towards that, you know?
Yep. Especially in those really, deep and sort of international markets like bonds and gold
Mm-hmm,
and the dollar. Those things, they're all on a big picture. Again, looking at your monthlies, they're all tightening up in triangles right
mm-hmm,
now
mm-hmm.
as
Yeah,
we
we will
speak.
see some of that in on the daily chart. I mean, the weekly charts.
Yeah, you will. You'll see some of that exactly. Because on the daily, you look at bonds, you can make the case that it's bearish, you can make the case that it's bullish, and there's valid, right? They're valid cases. But then you zoom out and you say, here's what's happening.
Mm-hmm,
It's
mm-hmm,
not making a decision yet. It's coiling up, building up energy and getting ready to explode,
mm-hmm.
which
Yeah,
is again
a lot of markets are doing that, and
appropriate for 4th of July. We're gonna have some
mm-hmm.
fireworks.
Yep. And we can kind of say the fuse got lit this week. I mean, that would be,
Yes.
just to carry it just to one more step.
And we just don't
Um,
know. Is it a long fuse? Is it a short fuse? How is it going to
mm-hmm,
be one of those fast burners? We don't know,
mm-hmm,
but
mm-hmm.
we're going to find out. And that's I think that's what makes this period of time so interesting and so unique is that it's not just one market that's doing it. It's major,
Yeah,
major
yeah,
international markets where capital flows to are doing this right now.
yeah. Yeah, we really have to watch this close.
Hmm.
And also to mention, we did from last October low to the low this week was 180 trading days.
Nice.
So that's
Hmm.
something to watch. We didn't have a new low, but it is kind of a low, something to keep an eye on. So it's
Hmm.
possible we go up and check out these highs again. The
Yeah.
119.16, really, after putting this 2 weeks of consolidation above that, I'm guessing that's going to act like some kind of a resistance.
Hmm.
So we'll watch that. Not really heavily into bonds right now, because let's just let it kind of play out the pattern that it's doing.
Hmm.
And looking at the weekly bonds, well, we got our 144, and I wasn't really convinced, if that's square. Well, we talked about that not squaring out properly,
Right.
but this one certainly did. 216 by 144. So we had to respect that. We kind of tried to break the triangle, came back in, and now we're back on the triangle line. So far as the bigger pattern goes, I'm sort of jury sort of out. I want to see what happens here. Can we settle above the 1/8 line here and set up something for a rally up? I mean, a rally would be fine here, but we'd have to settle about this 1/8 space.
Hmm.
Let's just give it the time to do that. But if it's somehow, the key to watch here is 114 goes, we have a long way to go.
Hmm.
And I'm sure everyone's trying to hold it above that line for now, because if that goes, we go. And I mean, the next place is this low. If that low goes, then who knows?
Par.
Yeah, well, I wasn't going to go there, but that's just how they stack up.
Hmm.
Um, so we'll see. We'll see if that's what's in the cards. So for now, we know 114. We talked about the levels on the daily. We'll just stay with that. Not much more to add. All right, let's move on to crude. Had a good week. Last couple of good weeks. Last
Hmm.
couple of weeks have been good.
Yeah. Yep.
We got to we were at 70. This whole V sort of pattern. We talked about it when it was leaving 83. We were talking about it. The next downside target being 73.50. We got there. From there, we started moving higher. Then the upside target was 83. We got there. Well, now all of a sudden we have nothing to do, because we really have to see what happens at this level. So far, we're holding pretty strongly right around 83, above 83. Sure, 83.30, 29, fine, but above the level. So this is very bullish. But since that is our band, the big box, let's see, if we can really hold above it next couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
And if it does and kind of stabilize up here, then 91 and then 97 ultimately. Otherwise, I'm expecting it to sort of drift back into the middle of the box and we'll take it from there. But the run up was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
It's $10 spread. So let's see. Now we could move higher. We just have to watch the 83. That's going to be the key to this. Looking at the weekly, which is also really beautiful, even though it's a tight winding. So this is part of what Ben was talking about, how everything's winding up, right?
Exactly. Another major market that's winding up on a bigger time frame.
And when crude, any energy related stocks, they start winding up, you really want to watch. Again, the thing is the time, how long is it going to wind? But the thing is, it's a little, that's a dicey area. It might be a few weeks, number of weeks, number of months. But when that thing breaks, there's plenty of movement there to trade for everybody,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of what we're watching. So one of the things that just so happened on the 83 when we reached that is the weekly trend line just happened to be there. Now we
Yep.
didn't plan it that way. That's just how the trend line was, drawn out at the time. Again, that's what I said. Now, like we talked about in the daily chart, now it matters. Is it going to hold above 83 and
Mm-hmm.
break? That would give us
Mm-hmm.
a clean break outside. Or are we going to sort of come back and, check the lower boundary, the lower triangle? Regardless, we're in the box. So this is sort of the consolidation box. And whatever we do in terms of coiling, going to have to happen inside of it. So we're watching that. The upper end of the box is 89, 89, yeah, 89 to almost 90.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if that goes, then we, on the weekly basis, if that goes, we have 96, which corresponds to our 97 on the daily.
Mm-hmm.
And if that goes, then we're definitely next time around, we're taking these highs out. So that's about $125 a barrel. So
Mm-hmm.
that ought to be fun. So, but but the idea is it really looks like it wants to move higher. And
Yeah.
so we really want to keep an eye on it. With this kind of a triangle, I think there's a lot of opportunity. However it manifests, we don't know
Yep.
what's
Yep.
going to trigger all of that. All
Mm-hmm.
right. Gold was holding above the 1/3 line, and we kept talking about the triangle and how it's holding above the 50% line is very bullish, and the 1/3 line is just perfect. So it held, and now we're running back up to check the upper boundary, which would be the 144 level around
Mm-hmm.
2405. Sure, it has a little bit more to go and check. Now, the key to watch here, man, if we ever get on top of 2405, we could run. I doubt we're
Big.
gonna, yeah, I doubt
Yeah.
this is gonna hold. So here's the thing, you guys, you can see how, look at the theme so far. We haven't covered everything, but you can see how crude is sort of in a breakout zone. Gold is sort of in a breakout zone. What's the breakout zone? Well, the 144, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we've held very bullish, sort of in a bullish pattern. So everything's looks tight, wound, and ready to break. And the squares are telling us in which direction, at least a highly probable direction. And here's your hint. Look at it. I mean, it's almost funny because we
Right.
know, right? We know when if it gets up to something at 90 level, and this is the correction we're getting. I mean, this thing is so bullish, not even funny.
Agreed.
So something's definitely happening, sort of underground. Crude's doing the same thing, gold's doing the same thing, and this is very tightly wound, as you can tell. And so we'll see how it happens. But we still, for the upside, we still weekly, we still have to clear this 2430 area. We can
Mm-hmm.
still mess around and trade lower. I mean, gold can do that, but now you know what the level is, 2430. So let's see how that works out. For now, it's extremely strong. It's a very strong. Why do I say that? I mean, look at the slope, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
2x1, man. Gold sitting on top of 2x1 is very bullish, and it'll continue to run. So you have to really watch it closely.
And if you look at what you just reviewed in the ES, how tight those consolidations have been since, it was making those highs, it's the same thing
Mm-hmm.
gold's doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Breakout high, super tight consolidation. Not
And at
even really a
very, yeah,
pullback.
Yeah, and at nosebleed levels for gold,
Right.
no problem holding. So it's really something to watch, and not lose sight of the bigger picture. Where are we? We're almost at new highs, and
Hmm.
just holding like there's no problem at all. So there are buyers buying it up along these levels, even though we're at these levels, at these
Hmm.
historic levels.
Sure.
All right, so copper pretty much had the same kind of a snap. We talked about, well, actually, the chart support here at the quarter line, and I pointed to the January highs
Great
holding.
structure, huh?
Great structure, man. It's textbook. You almost think, it's too good that everybody can see it, so how could it work? you know,
Right. Right.
but they do. That's why they hold over time, right? Over time, we
Hmm.
know these things work.
Hmm.
And well, the beautiful thing is, not only did that hold, we came up to 50%, and today we had a very strong break above the
Strong,
50%
strong bar.
level.
Yep.
Mhm. And you can see what happened back in April, May. We were building a triangle. So here's these are like super good. People are always going, you guys are teaching any courses, but if you guys watch every episode, it's amazing how many little gems are in there. You're
Oh,
gonna,
for sure.
so here's one. I mean, we were talking about this square. I remember here's the 50% level. Prices came up, but you can see on balance when this triangle is forming, it's mostly above the 50% line,
Hmm.
right there. See that?
Hmm.
And so what are the odds? Odds are it's going to break to the upside. That's just how it looks. If it breaks, then we're going to get to the next square, which it did, overshot a little bit. Fine. We'll take that going up into a cycle. This is the other thing I was talking about. Like pretend this is the 90. Here's a 480, the 60 cycle here. Yep. You see how we pulled it right up into that,
Hmm.
and it could go a couple of days past and energy is still there. And then it started to correct. Super healthy, good correction. You don't even need squares to find the support. And now, our stance sort of steps back one. Now we want to make sure any kind of a corrections to this impulse holds about 453, and you guys can trade the long side.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
Looks good.
here's another market broke out, retested, and it's already leading the way to the upside. Definitely want to note when copper's doing that.
All the metals did that this week. Gold, silver,
Mhm.
copper. They all made moves this week.
So it wasn't just gold, right? And silver. So it means something. Something's churning.
Mm-hmm.
Something is coming over the horizon. All right. Here's a weekly held well above the 144. We were talking about getting there would be just the perfect correction. And here is that physical sort of support level that we saw on the daily chart. Top of that triangle that broke. Looks fine. Basis weekly. The next pause would be really 480. How we deal with it when we get to the 50% line. And these lines are important. That's where we broke to the downside. You can see how all these taps earlier held at the 50% line, false break, correct. A lot of action happens at this 50%. A lot of action happened at this 50%. So
Mm-hmm.
so watch it. But up until then, 480, I think copper's in pretty good shape and we can deal with it when we get there. Next, we'll talk about the dollar. Speaking of 50%,
Speaking of winding up.
they're gonna wind it up exactly. It's amazing, what
Yep.
I think the second half, just like you said last week, second half, starting with July is going to be a doozy, and then I think the second half is going to be amazing for trading. I don't think that we're going to have any dull
Absolutely
markets.
wild. Yep. Absolutely
Impossible.
wild. Yep.
Here we have the dollar. Speaking of 50%, we kept tapping 50%, just couldn't get through. You can see it right there. And so we're in the zone. We have we have a trend line, 1x2 coming through here. Maybe it'll hold, maybe it won't, but it really doesn't matter because we're watching to see how this correction happens. We have a level around 103.92. That's that line that was drawn up where we held, back in early June. So a month later, we're revisiting. We're coming back lower. Let's see where we land, and because we're not really interested in the short side, I'm very interested in the long side. So we're watching the pullbacks here. Let's see what happens. Yeah, that's all I have. Do you have anything to add to the dollar here on the daily?
Just now again, when you look at the bigger picture, man, it's winding up in a triangle.
No, speaking of the bigger picture
There it
and
is.
triangles, there it is.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and I think next week we come to 360 degrees, solar degrees from the low back in 23.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of important. Sometimes they act as sort of triggers to sort of break the pattern. Yeah, and I suppose we have a lot of space here to correct within the triangle, but we are
Hmm.
squeezed into it, maybe making a little another mini triangle. Let's see how it works out. But so far, it's pressed. It really likes to come up and press against its 106.75 level. See how that works out. For now, I don't
Okay.
have a whole lot. What I do know is 45-week correction worked out really well,
Hmm.
and we made a higher low, and now we're sort of in a very bullish trend. A little
Hmm.
sloppy, but bullish nonetheless. So we're watching that in the big picture. So the euro also winding up,
Hmm.
and I mean it's getting very narrow now. We've been talking about the 108 level being sort of the mean reversion point, and it hasn't disappointed us so far. Now
No.
we're crossing to the upside again. Let's see what happens. I'm thinking we're also going to work into this triangle. It looks like
Hmm.
that it's fully active, and the triangle would be breaking if we get about 108.666.
Hmm.
And yeah, let's stay with that. Again, with the dollar, both of them, it's really consolidating and tightening up in these triangles. So let's wait for it to break. Not much to do at the 108 level because it could be it's obviously it's crossing up, but we'll have to wait till it kind of settles, which will be after today because we're clearly above 108 today.
Hmm.
And I would say to watch a triangle, and we have we have half a square, a quarter of a square that's working pretty well. The lower end of that square would be 106.90, and the upper end of that square would be right around 108.666. So it looks like that's the bracket, and we'll see how we leave the bracket and how we break out of it.
Well, there's a real good view of the triangle.
And the intensity, right? The long
Hmm.
term.
Hmm.
And so yeah, let's go with that. Again, 108 is in the middle of the triangle, and we're moving towards the upper edge of the triangle. And I think we're too close to the 108 level to actually make a call on this. Let's let it settle up above next week, and we can deal with it. See if we can break out or just to make another touch of the triangle and return. Uh,
Hmm.
so we'll leave it at that. It's just getting too tight for being in there with both hands.
Right.
Let it settle up. What else? Are you covering natural gas this week?
No, it's still pulling back, correcting. So I'm not going to go over that one. Hang Sang, we've been watching that
Mm-hmm.
one.
Yep. We got under this 18,054 level. We were above it for a bit. Then we were crisscrossing. Now we got stuck under it. You can see earlier this week we went up to test it. Let me zoom in a bit. We
Hmm.
went up to test it right there on the 4th, and it got kicked down. So it really looks like we're gonna next stop is really around 17,100,
Hmm.
which will be the 50% of the square. And so that's where the support is. If it gets, I think at this point we can consider Hang Seng to be weak below 1854,
Sure.
and till it gets a support around 17, let's say 1750, 17,050. So I'll leave it at that. Maybe take a look at natural gas really quick. What do you think, Ben?
This is
Just
pulling back.
pulling back, pretty
Hmm.
decent correction.
Yep.
Real, strong support looks like about 195 to 2.
Yeah, around $2.
Mm-hmm. And well, let's let it finish up and see how we go.
Hmm.
Interesting thing is we came right into the middle of the box we had drawn out, which was at the 3/4 level.
Hmm.
Well, quarter from the new square, and then we started correcting. Yeah, let it finish up. We'll see how it wraps around. We know, speaking of triangles and coiling, here's another market that's been coiling forever.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
again, energy market, right? Very, very long bottoming process. So
Hmm.
another one that's lit. So let's see how it takes off.
Agreed.
Hmm. Yeah, that's all I have. Let me put it back to you. Let's cover. I know you have a lot of grains and other commodities to cover this week. So,
Yeah, yeah. We saw some movements out of the commodity doldrums.
all right, Ben. At least the mystery of the square is pretty much solved at this point. We held at the square and we broke out.
Absolutely. I mean,
Mhm.
this is the whole thing about the squares, right? We had the
Yeah.
run up, into the full square, pulled back basically a half a
To the half.
square, and now we stalled for 3 days, and today we pushed through.
Okay, we got lit.
Yeah, the fuse got lit and it's
Mm-hmm.
moving. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the beauty of the squares is you don't have to guess, you don't have to predict. You just watch the price action at the square and it tells you, okay, are we gonna
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna consolidate, we're gonna correct, are we gonna move higher? And this says we're moving higher. As long as
Yep.
we're above this full square here,
Mm-hmm.
which is around 20,400, the next level up is 21,120.
Right.
And that's where this thing could head.
Mm-hmm.
The interesting thing, we're making this high just about 180 days
That's right.
from the lows last October.
Mm-hmm.
And 90, if we go 90 from the April lows, it puts us towards the end of August. I just
Mm.
wanted to throw that one in there in case. These are one by ones, so you can see it's pretty strong. It's holding well above this one by one. And if you take the one by one here, the dip we had here, now we're back above it and on top of that one by one. So unless something changes and we get below this full square at 180 level, you just gotta, it's bullish. You gotta stay bullish and trade the long side. Let's look at the weekly. Nice up bar on the weekly after we only had one down bar.
Yeah, it's a very
One
bullish. Mm-hmm.
1 week pullback, boom, holding the one by one. So the weekly and 90 weeks on the weekly is this week.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why, as you were, discussing when you were looking at ES, we gotta pay attention. You got to see what price action happens here because we got pulled up into that. Now, what happens when we come out of it and get to the other side? So we'll see. Let's look at the monthly. Monthly, we've already got an up bar. The couple of things I wanted to point out on this chart. Uh, Next month, which would be August, we're 22 months from the uh, October of 22 lows, so
Mm-hmm.
22 months. This month, we're 52 months from the COVID lows and 101 months from the 2016 lows. So this, again, there's a lot of timing, a lot of things coming in. Doesn't mean everything's gonna, turn tail and crash, but it does mean we got to pay attention and
Yeah.
be aware that changes in the structure now and changes in the price action will be significant, have the potential to be significant. Last thing I want to show you on this mix of these is the daily calendar.
Mm-hmm.
Look how nicely this thing worked.
Wow.
Went up into it, pulled back, and now we pushed through, and now we're sitting right on top.
Beautiful,
So
beautiful.
it does not look like it's letting up for now. These full square levels have to give out, and we have to get below those before there's any
Mm-hmm.
major concerns. It's so interesting. It's breaking out with this 90 weeks and 90 days and all these 90s and,
Mm-hmm.
and cycles coming in. So we got to
Yeah.
watch them closely.
Yep. Yep.
Um, Speaking of another one, let's look at Bitcoin. You would think Bitcoin would be breaking out, wouldn't you?
Yep.
But look at what happened. I was watching this in real time today. Look at this, man. We came right down. And
Into the
remember, this was
channel.
drawn in months ago, this channel. Tapped the channel and bounced right back up to the half square.
Right.
So if this turns out to be the low, it's really bullish because we're sitting on top of this little structure here and the highs we made, in early 2024 in January.
Mm-hmm.
But we definitely got a reaction off of hitting the bottom of that channel. And then here's the monthly I wanted to show you. Look at the reaction off of the full
Wow.
square.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Nice, huh?
Mm-hmm. And watch out if it goes. That's the other
Yeah.
side.
If it goes, yeah, well, there's a nice air pocket that we could take to the downside. But for now, on both the daily and the monthly, this price action is pretty bullish, bigger
Mm-hmm.
picture.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it plays out. On the commodity side, I thought it was going to be another blah week, and I wasn't going to have much to talk about. And then,
Mm-hmm.
things just started kicking up this week, like before the holiday and then today after the holiday. And so
Mm-hmm.
we do have some things to talk to. The first thing I want to do is you covered crude and copper. I just want to show those on the monthly, weekly and monthly basis because there's some interesting bigger picture views there.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with crude. So there's your crude weekly, and this triangle, as Barrie was talking about and we were talking together, is part of all of these major markets that have a lot of international participation are just coiling up. And
Mm,
this week, the high, again, this trend line was drawn in months ago, right on the high came right under the trend line. So if it's not ready, could it pull back, come down and retest this half square? Absolutely around 76, 77, or even make it down back down to the bottom of the triangle for sure.
hmm.
But if we bust through and when we bust through, it's going to be a big move. I mean, this thing's been winding up for months and months and months now.
Yeah, it's huge. Almost
Yep.
scary.
Yeah, let's look at the monthly. The key thing about this monthly too is this whole triangle is winding up, in the apex. Look where the apex sits, right on top of that
Mm,
high in 2018,
hmm.
which is bullish, right? That's pretty
Yeah,
bullish
yeah.
structure if you're looking at it because we're on top of this full square essentially where you can see how important that was here. It capped, rallies and sort of defined the highs for years and years.
Hmm.
And then here it caused it to stall on the way up and then gave it support on the way down. So the crude, the dollar, bonds, the these other major markets are all and gold are all sort of winding up as we speak into these incredibly important cycle periods. So let's show copper, the bigger picture on copper. So here's your weekly of copper. And the example I want to show here is what happens when these big triangles breaks. I mean,
Hmm.
look at
Hmm.
this type of triangle. Look at the move out of that triangle.
And it's still not over, you know.
And it's not over, right? It had a very sharp pullback, but the pullback came right to support, right to good structure. And now
Hmm.
we're going to close the week. It looks like with an hour left, we're going to possibly close the week over this important full square.
Yeah, that's a good example of a break. Sure.
Yep. And that's what's been happening when these things go. Let's look at the monthly. And again, it's just another example of the power you get coming out of these triangles. And I think these major markets that we're showing that are in triangles are setting up for these kind of moves. And the freaky thing to me is they're all setting up at the same time in big cycle windows.
Mm.
So what are the events that are going to happen that are going to cause these things to all break? Who the hell knows? But it's going to be big.
Yeah,
It's going to be
exactly.
massive. All right, let's go to the grains. Do some look at the grains. They've been off the radar for a while. So here we've got wheat, and you can look at the daily and you can say, "Oh, big deal." What's so important about this? Why are you highlighting this? Well, we made another higher low, right? We had a low here, had a high, got a higher low. We reversed off that, and we're sitting on top of this full square.
Hmm.
All things that you want to see a market do when you're transitioning from a bearish trend to a bullish trend,
Hmm.
right? Gave us a higher low sitting on top there. So now let's look at the bigger pictures and see what they're showing. We have a reversal bar on the weekly this week. This market's already closed. So we closed at the highs. We reversed this downtrend. Basically, we had a 1, 2, 3, 4 week downtrend, right?
Hmm.
Reversed it this week with a higher low. That looks bullish to me. Here's the monthly. On a monthly basis, what I wanted to show here is we basically did 2 years down, 24 months high to low. Had a strong push off the bottom, one big bar down, and now we're pushing higher. The key thing on the monthly here is we want to close above this like 607 area.
Hmm. Hmm.
Then we capture that half square. We've got this whole structure below us, and we open up, the 750 area on a full square basis.
Right.
So I really like the fact that we got the weekly reversal, we got a higher low on the daily, and now we know the important target on the monthly. We want to get over that 607 area. Anything you want to add here on wheat?
Well, I think we really have to watch closely. You know, we had some lows come in back in May, and we're making a very clean higher low, and the structure looks very good. I would say as soon as we settle above the square, which we're starting to begin to do today,
today. Yep.
Yeah, I think we can trade that alongside.
Yep. Looks good.
Hmm.
Corn's not ready yet. Corn has made new lows, still trying to find its footing. So we'll leave corn alone. But soybeans, I want to show you because it did something on a bigger time frame again that's noteworthy.
Hmm.
So this may not look like it, but this is a higher low.
Hmm.
It's essentially a double bottom, but it is a higher low. It's a few like a point and change higher than the low we made here. So we had first push, higher low. Now we've had like 3 or 4 days in a row of strong price movement. But let's look at what that translates to on the weekly. That's an outside reversal bar. We made
Yeah.
a new low on the week, closed the week at a higher high than last week.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I was thinking about Barry. This is it. It's an outside reversal on a weekly is akin to what we look at on the lower time frames and call a false break.
Yeah. Yep.
They're significant. They're not 100%, as nothing in the market is 100%, but you generally get some follow through, and it generally, with good odds,
Hmm.
tends to mark a decent low or a decent high if it's a reversal down.
Right. Right.
So this is something we want to pay attention to. And remember, we got 90 weeks high to low, which is pretty significant as well. So we'll watch this. Again, these are not certainties, but this is something that is a positive development for beans. Let's look at the monthly just to give you a shape of the big picture. What I
Hmm.
want to show here is this quarter square. Look how strong support that square is providing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. It's basically held the lows on
Right.
this quarter square. So that's your do or die price if you're going to go long. You can't see that close below because that would basically erase 6 months worth of price action. But monthly
Yeah.
basis, if we hold that and can turn up and break this downtrend line, we're in
Hmm.
business there. We also did 20 months
Hmm.
high to low.
It's good.
Anything to
I,
to add?
well, I think all the grains we need to watch it because it's a little bit been out of sight. Let's just say been correcting and consolidating. And I think it's time to watch them, just like everything else.
Sugar's one I talked about last week and have talked about previously. On a daily basis, we broke out of this triangle. We pushed up, tried to sort of escape this line here. Didn't quite make it yet. But I want you to notice, look at where the lows this week all came in. That's good structure,
Incredible,
right?
yeah. Hmm.
3, 4 days they tested this high when they were testing these lows. So we'll see. Looks like they want to do another day of testing early next week.
Hmm.
But let's
Hmm.
watch this. If the trend line holds and the structure holds, the next move on a sugar daily basis could be a fast one.
And probably worth watching if that ends up being well, that is an inside day. We have to really watch that.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be a fun
Let,
trade.
let's look at the weekly here on sugar. Nice week on sugar. Even though we closed at the lows, the whole bar is above this half square. And that half square, call it like 1989, 1990.
Hmm.
Staying above there puts us in good shape to attack the full square up here, which is around
Right.
22,
Yeah.
22 and change.
Yeah.
So we broke the downtrend line last week. This week we came down. We're testing this half square. Really need to see us hold that half square because if we don't hold the half
Hmm.
square, we could have a deeper correction yet.
Right.
But let's see. Let's see how it plays out. Let's
Hmm.
take a quick look at the monthly. Monthly, we've already got an up bar
Hmm.
on this month. We've made a higher high this month, so that's positive. This is would be the second month if we can, if we hold these lows, it'll be the second month after making that low and holding the half square.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I like the way the bigger picture is supporting here. You can see how important this half square is on a monthly basis too.
Yeah.
Just go back looking all the way back to 05, 06. That was the highs. When it
Hmm.
was coming down, it was battling at this level, as it was pulling back after the spike highs.
Hmm.
We battled here for a while at this level, basically a year and a half, almost 2 years.
Hmm.
So as long as we hold that, we should have a push up towards this full square in sugar. Also, there's always the old 50% of the range. If you look
Yep.
from 99,
Mm-hmm.
you know where that is? Right here.
There we go.
That's why it's so important.
Looks like a really good balance point
Mhm.
also. Mhm.
So the fact that we're on the north side of it, on the good side of it for bulls, is a positive. So let's watch it. And that price,
Mhm.
1860. As
Okay.
long as we hold above 1860, I think we're in good shape from a monthly standpoint on sugar. Anything you want to add here on sugar?
No, we're good. We did good coverage for now.
All right, let's jump to
Hmm.
coffee. Speaking of triangles,
Hmm.
last week we talked about the triangle on the daily here on coffee. This week we just wound up a little more, came down and tested the bottom, pushed back up.
Hmm.
So let this thing play out. But you can see we're going to get narrower and narrower as every day goes by. So you want to keep an eye on this and wait for the breakout because the move should be good. And let me show you why, what's supporting it. There's a weekly triangle.
Yep.
And look what happens when weekly triangles break on this thing. Nice move, huh?
Yeah, very nice.
So let's even if we get the similar type of move, a full square, it puts us up to 275 and new highs, basically
Yeah.
exceeding the 22 highs.
Hmm. Hmm.
You can kind of see when you step back how all these commodities are they're either basing near a high or winding up or putting in lows, and they're kind of waiting for something to kick off this next big rally.
Hmm.
And maybe the cycles are telling us that's what's going to be happening. Here's your monthly,
Wow. Yeah. Look at that.
just winding up
Hmm. Hmm.
in a bullish way. So let's see. Let's keep it on your radar. Nothing to do right now if you're not in a position already, but watch it and play the break. Anything to add here?
No, I mean, all these commodities, everything you mentioned is really important. These are the kind of stuff you want to write down, take notes, and just follow every week to see how they break. But that's
Yeah,
where you can start trading.
it's coming.
Yeah.
That's why you were saying the second half is going to be busy. It is going to be really, really busy because it's just looking like multiple, if not most markets are going to be trending.
At least there's going to be a lot of volatility. I think that translates to trading and profits, and I think a lot of things are setting up. It feels like these triangles feel like they're long-term trends. So once they break, it's going to go on for weeks and months.
Yeah,
And that's the kind of thing that I like because it's less work, less effort.
right. Because you know the direction.
Exactly.
All right, let's finish up with silver. Speaking of
Hmm.
triangles, so here's the silver daily.
Hmm.
Essentially we completed an ABCD down. Missed by a little bit, but essentially we completed that. And then look at this move off of the bottom hit here. Really powerful. Came right up into the top of this triangle, but it's still a triangle, just like we're saying in a lot of other markets, unrelated to silver too. The interesting thing this week, Barry, is the gold, silver, and copper all had big weeks. All the
Yeah.
metals moved.
And not
Um,
little tiny little moves, but very, large step, especially today.
Pronounced moves. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Let's look at the weekly.
That.
Key level there is 32. That's your full square.
Hmm.
We get above 32, it's off to the races.
Yep.
And you can see, look at the pullback off that high. It was basically half a square it pulled back.
Looks good.
And look where that sits structure wise.
Hmm. So
And it's bullish.
nothing in there looks like a bear market.
No, not at all. Not
and
at
it and,
all.
and it doesn't look like a bull market is over. So let's just
And here's an
watch it for
example
now.
I think is good for us to talk about briefly. So low to high here,
Hmm.
90 weeks.
Mm.
So we got a reaction off of that, but look at what it's doing.
Yeah, yeah.
So now we got to watch and see. Do we fail there or do we actually exceed and sit on top and go? I think the probabilities favor that it's going to keep going just the way it's acting. But we'll see. We got to be aware of
Yeah,
that, right? This
yeah. I mean,
this doesn't mean
yeah.
it doesn't mean it's the end all and be all, but you just notice it and you say, okay, I have to watch the price action, see what happens.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Let's look at the monthly. You could say it's a little triangle building again. But the key is the price. Look where the price is. Look where the lows are.
Well above the square, that's for sure.
Well above the square,
hmm
at the highs from 20 and 21, above
hmm
all the price action from 2013 to 2021.
Yeah.
This is the only structure that's above us right now. So it's bigger picture, very, very bullish. Anything to add on silver?
No, other than we really need to watch it, especially with 90 coming in place. And if we somehow take that out, we have a lot more to go. And that lines up with all the energy stocks.
I mean, we have about 5 minutes left, Barry. So let's just quickly spend it talking about your views on what this means, what all these
Mm.
triangles mean in these different markets and the cycles coming in. In your experience, how do you prepare yourself for that? Not what you think is going to happen, but more of how does the trader mentally be prepared for what's coming?
So in that process, the next part, what I watch for is to the break and to confirm that it's not a false break. So as soon as you confirm that, I think you can start trading in that direction. I mean, the whole point of the pattern is to figure out the direction of the break. And why do we want to do that? Because we know there's a high probability that there's going to be a fairly decent, meaning in time, weeks, months, sometimes years, right?
If it's a monthly, yeah, it could be a year's long move. Yep.
So the way you prepare is you really want to pace and make sure you're organized so you can start tracking the upside or downside signals once the break is in place. I think the most complex part of trading is when starting to trend. So when consolidations happen, we don't jump in there, try to pick a side before it breaks out. What you want to do is wait for the break, confirm it, and then start taking your buy or sell signals following the breakout. The reason you want to know about watch that breakout is you can kind of estimate what kind of power or the trend that could develop out of that. We're looking at these weekly triangles, and if you go back and look on the weekly charts, you'll see markets that go for years
Yep.
after a big triangle break or some other pattern break on a weekly basis. We're not even talking the monthlies that you were showing us.
hmm
So the way I think the way to prepare is make sure you're clean with your buy signals, sell signals. I mean, we're assuming you guys have systems in place to get you triggered into a trade on the long side or short side. And that's fairly easy once you know the direction, right? I mean, if you know the direction, everybody's going to make money, so they say. And the way we,
Right.
so the way we pick the direction, I mean, for us, squares, we know it's sort of a repelling, attracting kind of quality. So we play on that. And if something settles above a square, we know the likelihood of it continuing to the next level is very high. So we trade the long side. S&P, you can do that all day. It'll go to one level to the next level, then for the next level back to the old level or continues, right? That's just how it works. Either you're reacting or impulsing. So I think the main thing is the easiest part is to trade the trend once it leaves the pattern. So I think the thing to anticipate is the trendy part, and also the earlier you identify the break and to see if it's false or not, the better off you are. You're not chasing anything, and you don't have to. Once you watch it break, we just take the next signal. And the problem, I think the complex part that I'm kind of avoid getting into is because everybody has a different way. And how do you get triggered into a trade? Even if you know the direction, if you don't know how to enter it, then you're going to be very sloppy. You're gonna try to get out when it's impulsing, and try to get in when it's correcting. Get it everything upside down. You know
Sure.
what I mean? Just make a big mess out of it. So that's why one of the things you could do is make sure your systems are clean, that it can actually trade a trend. It doesn't have to, systems don't have to catch corners, at least on the retail side, right? I don't think
Mhm.
anybody gets paid for catching a corner. You get paid for trading the trend, the movement following a corner.
Well, I wanted to get your thoughts on it, Barry, because what's clear from the charts and from our cycles is that we are about to enter a period where there's going to be some major trends
Hmm.
start.
Yes.
Like we're leaving a period of consolidation and congestion and moving to a trending period. So
Hmm.
it's super important for everyone to be ready. Rest up over the weekend. The summary would be the fuse is lit.
Yes.
We're just waiting for the explosion. It's
Hmm.
coming.
That's a good summary.
So, um, listen, great job, Barry. Good show, good coverage. Everybody, thanks for subscribing to the channel, for ringing the bell, for sharing our work with other people. We really appreciate it, and we'll talk with you next week. Have a good rest of your holiday weekend, and stay safe. And we'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks, Ben. Good job. We'll see you next week.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye bye.